The stars looked different from the bridge of the Liberty's edge. Captain Jake Morrison stood at the wide window, watching the alien ships move closer. They were huge, dark shapes that blocked out the light from distant suns. He had never seen anything like them before. "Captain, they're sending a message," said Lieutenant Mary Johnson from her station. Her voice was steady, but Jake could hear the worry underneath. "Put it on the main screen," Jake said. The screen flickered, and then an alien face appeared. It was tall and thin, with 6 eyes arranged in 2 rows. Its skin was green and covered in small scales. When it spoke, its voice was cold and hard. "I am Commander Victal of the Kalari Hegemony. You will prepare to receive our diplomatic team. Resistance is not an option." Jake looked at his crew. They were all young, brave people who had signed up to explore the stars. None of them had expected to meet aliens like this. "Send a reply," he said. "Tell them we'll receive their team, but our diplomat will handle the talks." 2 hours later, the alien shuttle landed in the Liberty's Edge cargo bay. The Kalari delegation walked out, like they owned the place. Commander Victal was even bigger in person, nearly 8 feet tall. Behind him came 6 other aliens, all carrying weapons that hummed with energy. Commander Lisa Hayes was waiting for them. She was a small woman with gray hair and kind eyes, but she stood straight and proud. She had been Earth's best diplomat for 20 years. Today, she would need all her skill. "Welcome aboard," Lisa said. "I'm Commander Hayes, representing Earth's government." Victal looked down at her like she was an insect. "You are small. Your ship is small. Your people are weak. This makes things simple." They walked to the meeting room in silence. The Kalari took their seats without being asked. Victal placed a metal device on the table. It projected a hologram that showed star maps and numbers. "This is how things work," Victal said. "The Kalari Hegemony rules this part of space. We have ruled for 300 years. Every species pays tribute. Every species follows our laws. Every species serves the hegemony." Lisa nodded politely. "I see. And what exactly are you asking from humanity?" "Not asking. Telling." Victal's 6 eyes focused on her. 40% of everything you produce. Food, metals, technology, people. In return, we protect you from other threats. We let you live. People? Lisa asked quietly. Workers. Soldiers. Whatever we need. This is the price of peace. Lisa was quiet for a long moment. Around the table, the other Kalari were smiling. They had done this before, many times. Every species eventually said yes. Fear always won in the end. "I need to discuss this with my government," Lisa said finally. Victal made a sound like laughter. "Of course. You have 72 hours to decide. After that, we will choose for you." The aliens left the ship as suddenly as they had arrived. Jake found Lisa in the meeting room, staring at the star maps they had left behind. "What do you think?" he asked. "I think they've never met humans before," Lisa said. She activated her communication device. "Get me Earth Command, Priority Alpha." The next day, ships began arriving. Not alien ships, but human ones. They came from Earth, from the colonies, from the deep space stations. They were small compared to the Kalari vessels, but they moved with purpose. President Kevin Walsh appeared on the communication screen. His face was serious, but calm. "Commander Hayes, you have our answer." Lisa nodded. "I thought I might." "Are you sure about this, sir?" "We've been preparing for this day since we first left Earth," the president said. "We hoped it would never come. But we're ready." The second meeting was different. This time, the Kalari delegation came expecting good news. They had monitored human communications and seen the arrival of more ships. They thought humanity was gathering to surrender. Vital entered the meeting room with confidence. Have you made your decision? Lisa placed a small data pad on the table. Yes, we have. This contains humanity's response to your demands. The alien picked up the device and read it. His expression changed from confidence to confusion to anger. This is impossible. You cannot be serious. I'm completely serious, Lisa said. You have 72 hours to remove all Kalari forces from human space. Any ship that remains will be considered an act of war. The other Kalari began making clicking sounds. It was their version of laughter. Vital's eyes narrowed. Your species numbers only 2 billion across a few small worlds. The hegemony commands fleets that conquered star systems before your ancestors learned to make fire. You dare threaten. You? Lisa stood up slowly. Her voice remained calm and steady. We're not threatening you, Commander. We're educating you. War has a price, and this time you're paying. The clicking laughter got louder. Vital leaned forward. Little human, do you know what happened to the last species that refused our offer? The Gentari were proud warriors. They had 1 million ships. We turned their homeworld into glass. Their species exists only as slaves now. The Zentari weren't human, Lisa said simply. What makes you think that matters? Lisa looked out the window at the growing fleet of human ships. They were still small compared to the Kalari vessels, but there was something different about them. They moved with deadly precision, like sharks circling prey. You'll find out, she said. The meeting ended badly. The Kalari delegation stormed out, making threats and promises of destruction. Vital's final words echoed in the corridor. In 72 hours, your species will learn the price of defying the hegemony. Lisa watched their shuttle leave. Jake joined her at the window. Think they'll actually leave? He asked. No, Lisa said. They've never been told no before. They don't know how to handle it. And if they don't leave? Lisa's expression was sad, but determined. Then they'll learn something new. They'll learn what happens when you threaten humanity's children. Outside, the human fleet continued to grow. Each ship was small, but they carried something the Kalari had never seen before. They carried the fury of a species that had fought its way up from caves and darkness to touch the stars. They carried the determination of people who would rather die free than live as slaves. The 72 hours were counting down. Soon, the Kalari would learn that some prices were too high to pay. War was coming to the stars. The 72 hours passed like a slow death. On the bridge of the Liberty's Edge, Captain Jake Morrison watched the countdown timer reach 0. The Kalari fleet had not moved. If anything, more ships had arrived. Sir, we're getting a message from the Kalari flagship, Lieutenant Mary Johnson reported. Jake nodded. Put it through. Commander Vital appeared on the screen. His 6 eyes were bright with anger. Your time is up, human. Since you refuse to see reason, we will teach you. We are moving to your colony world of New Denver. 800,000 of your people live there. They will serve as an example to the rest of your species. The screen went black. Jake felt ice in his stomach. New Denver was a peaceful farming world. Families lived there. Children played in fields under alien suns. Now they were going to die because humanity had said no to slavery. Get me Admiral Cole on Earth, Jake said quietly. Admiral Patricia Cole appeared on the screen minutes later. She was a tall woman with steel-gray hair and eyes that had seen too much war. I know what you're going to ask, Captain. The answer is yes. We're ready. One ship? Jake asked. Against 60 Kalari warships? Not just any ship, Cole said. Captain Rodriguez and the Phoenix are already in position. They've been waiting for this moment. Jake had heard stories about the Phoenix. It was one of the new ships, built with technology that was supposed to be impossible. Most people thought the stories were just rumors. Today, he would find out if they were true. The Phoenix hung in space near New Denver like a silver needle. It was small compared to the Kalari ships, barely 400 meters long. Captain Danny Rodriguez stood on its bridge, watching the enemy fleet approach. His crew was calm and ready. They had trained for this day. "Sir, the Kalari are hailing." "U.S.," said Lieutenant Tim Brooks. "Put them on speakers," Rodriguez said. The voice that came through was different from Viktal's. This was Admiral Kreshtok, the most feared commander in the Kalari fleet. His voice was deep and cold like winter. "Human vessel, you are surrounded. Your position is hopeless. Surrender now, and we will make your deaths quick." Rodriguez picked up the communication device. His voice was steady and calm. "Phoenix to Kalari fleet. You have entered human space with hostile intent. You have one opportunity to withdraw. We will not offer another." Laughter came through the speakers. Not just from one alien, but from many. The bridge crew of every Kalari ship was laughing at the lone human vessel. "You have courage, human, but courage cannot stop plasma cannons." Kreshtok said, "Last chance, surrender or die." "We choose option 3, Rodriguez said. "There is no option 3. We make our own options. Phoenix out." The communication ended. Around the small human ship, 60 Kalari warships moved into attack formation. Each one was 5 times larger than the Phoenix. Each one carried enough firepower to destroy a city. On the Kalari flagship, Admiral Kreshtok gave the order. "All ships, open fire. Destroy the human vessel." Space lit up with energy. Plasma beams, particle cannons, and missile streams all focused. On the Phoenix, the combined firepower of the Kalari fleet was enough to crack a moon. The small human ship should have been vaporized instantly. Instead, something impossible happened. The Phoenix's shields held. Not just held, but seemed to absorb the energy and grow stronger. The ship began to move, not away from the enemy, but toward them. "Impossible," Kreshtok whispered. "No shields can withstand that much firepower." His tactical officer was staring at his instruments in disbelief. "Sir, their shields are reading 0 energy loss. It's like our weapons aren't even touching them." The Phoenix fired back. A single beam of blue-white energy lanced out and struck the nearest Kalari ship. The massive warship simply disappeared. Not destroyed, not exploded, just gone. Where it had been, there was only empty space. What kind of weapon was that? Someone screamed over the communication channel. Rodriguez's voice came through the chaos, calm and professional. "That was a quantum disruptor. It breaks the bonds between atoms." The ship didn't explode because there wasn't anything left to explode. The Phoenix moved through the Kalari formation like a ghost. It was faster than anything the aliens had ever seen. Their targeting computers couldn't lock onto it. When they fired, the human ship was already somewhere else. Another blue beam lanced out. Another Kalari warship vanished. Then another. The Phoenix was moving in a pattern, taking out the biggest ships first. Each shot was perfectly aimed, perfectly timed. "All ships, focus fire on the human vessel," Kreshtok ordered. "Everything we have." The remaining Kalari ships obeyed. The space around the Phoenix became a storm of energy and metal. Hundreds of weapons fired at once. The human ship disappeared in a ball of destruction. For a moment, there was silence. Then, the Phoenix emerged from the explosion, completely undamaged. It had been inside the blast, but somehow it was untouched. "Impossible," Kreshtok said again. "Our sensors show direct hits, multiple direct hits." "Your sensors are correct," Rodriguez said over the open channel. "You hit us 47 times. Our armor absorbed the energy and converted it to power. For our engines, thank you for the fuel." The Phoenix accelerated toward the Kalari flagship. As it moved, it fired again and again. Each shot eliminated another enemy ship. The Kalari formation began to break apart as captains panicked and tried to flee. "Hold position," Kreshtok screamed. "We outnumber them 60-1. 53-1, Rodriguez corrected. 52-1. 51-1. The Phoenix continued its deadly dance. It moved between the Kalari ships like it was playing a game. Sometimes it would fire the blue disruptor beam. Sometimes it would launch missiles that phased through enemy shields like they weren't there. Sometimes it would simply ram enemy ships, its shields cutting through their hulls like paper dot in 20 minutes. The mighty Kalari fleet was reduced to burning wreckage. Only a few ships remained, including Kreshtok's flagship. The admiral sat in his command chair, staring at the tactical display in shock. "How?" he whispered. "How is this possible?" Rodriguez's ship moved closer to the damaged flagship. The human captain's voice came through the speakers one more time. "You wanted to know about humanity, Admiral? Here's your first lesson. We don't just fight to win. We fight to make sure you never want to fight us again." The Phoenix's weapons powered up. Again, Kreshtok closed his eyes, waiting for death. Instead, Rodriguez's voice continued. "But we're not monsters. You have one damaged ship left. Return to your people. Tell them what you've seen here. Tell them what happened when they chose to threaten our families." The Phoenix backed away from the flagship. Around them, the wreckage of the Kalari fleet drifted in the darkness. 59 ships destroyed. Thousands of alien warriors dead, all stopped by a single human vessel. "Tell them," Rodriguez said, "that war has a price. And this time, you're paying." Kreshtok's flagship limped away from the battle. The admiral sat in silence, trying to understand what he had witnessed. His fleet had been destroyed by technology that seemed like magic. Weapons that ignored shields, armor that absorbed energy. A ship that moved faster than thought itself. As they jumped to hyperspace, Kreshtok looked back at the human ship. Phoenix was already gone, disappeared as mysteriously as it had appeared. Only the wreckage remained, floating in space like a graveyard of alien dreams. The message was clear. Humanity had drawn a line in the stars. Anyone who crossed it would face the consequences. The Kalari had wanted to enslave 2 billion humans. Instead, they had awakened something far more dangerous. They had awakened humanity's protective instincts. And now the galaxy would learn what that truly meant. The news of the fleet's destruction reached the Kalari homeworld 3 days later. Admiral Kreshtok stood before the High Council, his body shaking with shame and fear. Around him, the most powerful beings in the hegemony listened to his report. In growing horror, one ship, Overlord Zethkar said slowly. His voice was deadly quiet. "One single human ship destroyed 59 of our finest warships." "Yes, my lord," Kreshtok whispered. "Their technology is beyond anything we've seen. Our weapons couldn't hurt them. Our shields couldn't protect us. They moved through our formation like we were standing still." Council member Drexmal leaned forward. "You're saying they're more advanced than us? That's impossible. Our scouts reported that humans only achieved faster-than-light travel 50 years ago. They're primitives." "I saw what I saw," Kreshtok replied. "Their weapons destroyed our ships at the molecular level. Their shields turned our attacks into power for their engines. They knew exactly where we would be before we moved." The council chamber erupted in angry clicking. Some members called Kreshtok a coward. Others demanded proof of his claims. But Chief Science Advisor Valthara had been studying the sensor data from the battle. Her analysis made everyone fall silent. "The energy signatures are unlike anything in our databases," she said, her voice trembling. "Their weapons appear to manipulate the fundamental forces of reality itself. They're not just more advanced than us. They're operating on a completely different level of science. Overlord Zethkar stood up from his throne. He was ancient, even by Kalari standards, and had ruled the hegemony for over a century. Never in all that time had he faced a threat like this. "How many ships can we gather?" he asked. "From all sectors?" "Perhaps 3,000, replied Admiral Sektar. "It would take time to recall them all." "Then do it. Send the call to every fleet commander, every garrison, every patrol ship. I want every vessel the hegemony possesses ready for war." Velthara clicked her claws nervously. "My lord, perhaps we should consider negotiation. If their technology is this advanced, maybe we should try to reach an agreement." Zethkar's 6 eyes fixed on her with fury. "The hegemony does not negotiate with inferior species. We rule or we destroy. There is no middle ground." "But they're not inferior," Velthara protested. "The evidence clearly shows. The evidence shows that they got lucky," Zethkar snarled. "They had 1 good ship. We'll bring 3,000. Numbers will tell in the end." On Earth, Admiral Patricia Cole stood in the Strategic Command Center, watching the holographic displays that showed Kalari fleet movements across the galaxy. The aliens were pulling ships from every corner of their empire. It was exactly what humanity had expected. President Kevin Walsh joined her at the main display. He looked tired. The weight of leading humanity through its first galactic war was heavy on his shoulders. "How many ships are they bringing?" he asked. "Our scouts report." "Over 3,000 so far," Cole replied. "Dreadnoughts, battle cruisers, carriers, destroyers. Everything they have. And our response?" Cole smiled grimly. 12 ships. The entire Prometheus fleet." The president raised an eyebrow. 12 against 3,000? Even with our technology, those are terrible odds. "Not really," Cole said. "Each Prometheus-class ship is worth 1,000 of theirs. But more importantly, they still don't understand what they're facing. They think the Phoenix was our best effort. They have no idea what we're really capable of." Deep in the asteroid belt, hidden bases that had been secret for decades began to activate. The Prometheus project had been humanity's greatest achievement. 12 ships built with technology that pushed the boundaries of physics itself. Captain Amy Foster stood on the bridge of the lead ship Retribution. Around her, the crew prepared for battle with calm efficiency. They had trained for this moment. For years, each person knew their role in the coming fight. "Captain, we're receiving deployment orders," reported Lieutenant Carl Stone. Amy nodded. "All ships. This is Retribution. We jump in 30 minutes. Remember, we're not just fighting for Earth. We're fighting for every species the Kalari have. Enslaved, we're fighting for the future of the galaxy." The other 11 ships acknowledged her message. Each one is a masterpiece of human engineering. They carried weapons that could tear apart reality itself. Their shields could withstand the destruction of stars. Their engines could move faster than light itself. But the real secret was not in their technology. It was in their crews. Every person aboard the Prometheus ships was a volunteer. They had signed up knowing they might not come home. They fought not for glory or conquest, but for the simple right to exist as free beings. Meanwhile, the Kalari war machine continued to grow. Ships arrived from every corner of the hegemony. The massive space station at Zarian Prime became a hive of activity as supplies and ammunition were loaded onto the growing fleet. Overlord Zethkar watched from his command ship, the World Render. It was the largest vessel ever built by the Kalari, the size of a small moon. Its weapons could destroy planets. Its shields could protect entire fleets. It was the ultimate expression of Kalari power. "My lord, all ships report ready," Admiral Sektar announced. 3,200 vessels await your command." Zethkar looked out at the assembled fleet. It stretched for thousands of kilometers. In every direction, every ship was crewed by veteran warriors. Every weapon was charged and ready. It was a force that could conquer entire star systems. And the humans? He asked. Our scouts report movement in their territory, but we can't get close enough for detailed scans. Their ships seem to appear and disappear at will. No matter, Zethkar said. They can hide behind their technology, but they cannot hide from overwhelming force. Give the order. We move on the human homeworld. The Kaleri fleet began to move. 3,000 ships jumping through hyperspace toward Earth. It was the largest military force in galactic history, commanded by beings who had never known defeat. On Earth, the final preparations were complete. The Prometheus fleet had already departed, moving through dimensions that the Kaleri didn't even know existed. Admiral Cole stood in the command center, watching the enemy fleet approach. Estimated time to Earth? She asked. 18 hours, replied her aide. Should we evacuate the cities? Cole shook her head. No, the battle won't be fought here. Our ships will intercept them at Zirion Prime. We're going to end this where it started. The president appeared on the communication screen. Are you sure about this, Patricia? If we fail, we won't fail, Cole said firmly. The Kaleri chose this fight. They wanted to see what war with humanity looks like. We're going to show them. And when it's over, they'll understand something important. What's that? Cole's expression was cold as space itself. That some species are too dangerous to threaten. That some prices are too high to pay. That war has consequences they never imagined. In the darkness between stars, 12 human ships moved toward their destiny. They carried the hopes of billions of people and the fury of a species that had fought its way up from caves to touch the stars. Soon, the galaxy would learn what happened when humanity stopped being patient. The Kaleri wanted war. They were about to get more than they bargained for. The Battle of Zirion Prime would be remembered as the day the galaxy changed forever. The Kaleri hegemony had assembled the largest fleet in their 300-year history. Over 3,000 ships hung in space around their fortress world, ready to crush humanity once and for all. At the center of the formation floated the World Render, Overlord Zethkar's massive command ship. It was the size of a small moon, its weapons powerful enough to crack planets. Around it, battle cruisers and dreadnoughts formed defensive rings. Smaller ships filled the gaps between the larger vessels. My lord, our scouts report human ships. Approaching, announced Admiral Sektar. They're moving in from the outer system. Zethkar leaned forward in his command throne. How many? 12 ships, my lord. They're much smaller than expected. A wave of clicking laughter swept through the World Render's bridge. 12 ships against over 3,000. The humans had finally lost their minds. 12 ships? Zethkar could barely believe it. Are they surrendering? Unknown, my lord. They're maintaining course and speed. They appear to be in attack formation. Zethkar stood up, his 6 eyes blazing with triumph. Then they've chosen death. All ships, prepare for battle. Today, we end the human threat forever. The Prometheus fleet moved through space like ghosts. Each ship was a masterpiece of human engineering, sleek and deadly. Captain Amy Foster commanded the lead vessel Retribution. Her crew was calm and ready, their faces showing no fear. Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the Kaleri flagship, reported Lieutenant Carl Stone. Put it through, Amy said. Zethkar's image appeared on the screen. The ancient alien looked confident, almost happy. Human Commander, I am Overlord. Zethkar of the Kaleri hegemony. You have brought 12 ships against my 3,000. Are you here to surrender? Amy's expression was calm. This is Captain Foster of the Earth vessel Retribution. We're here to end this war. With 12 ships? Zethkar laughed. Your arrogance is amazing. Do you see the fleet before you? Every vessel is crewed by veteran warriors. Every weapon is charged and ready. You face the might of the entire hegemony. Yes, I see them, Amy replied. They're impressive. But there's something you should know about humans, Overlord. We don't measure victory by the size of our fleets. Then how do you measure it? Amy's smile was cold as winter. By the size of our enemy's mistakes, and you've made a very big one. The transmission ended. Around the Kolari fleet, warning alarms began to sound. The human ships were accelerating, moving directly toward the center of the formation. All ships open fire, Zethkar commanded. Destroy them all. 3,000 ships opened fire at once. The space between the fleets became a storm of energy and destruction. Plasma beams, particle cannons, and missile streams all focused on the 12 human vessels. The combined firepower was enough to destroy an entire star system. The human ships disappeared in balls of fire and energy. For a moment, the Kolari crews cheered. They had done it. The humans were finally dead. Then the explosions cleared, and the Prometheus fleet emerged. Not damaged, not slowed, but completely untouched. Their shields had absorbed the massive attack and converted it into power for their engines. Impossible, Zethkar whispered. Nothing can survive that much firepower. Sir, our sensors show the human ships are actually stronger now, reported his tactical officer. They're using our energy to boost their own systems. The Prometheus fleet split into 3 groups. 4 ships moved toward the outer ring of defenders. 4 more attacked the mill formation. The remaining 4, led by Retribution, headed straight for the world Render Dot. What happened next defied everything the Kolari knew about warfare. The human ships moved through their formation like it wasn't there. They phased in and out of normal space, appearing behind enemy vessels and disappearing before return fire could hit them. Each Prometheus ship carried weapons that the Kolari had never seen before. Quantum disruptors that unraveled matter at the molecular level. Gravity bombs that created miniature black holes. Nanite swarms that ate enemy ships from the inside out. The first wave of Kolari ships died in seconds. Massive dreadnoughts simply vanished as quantum disruptors tore them apart. Battle cruisers were crushed into nothing by artificial gravity wells. Entire squadrons of fighters were consumed by nanite clouds. All ships focus fire on the human vessels, Zethkar screamed. Overwhelm their shields. The remaining Kolari ships tried to obey, but the human vessels were too fast. They moved through dimensions that the aliens didn't even know existed. When the Kolari fired, the humans were already somewhere else. Captain Foster watched her tactical display with satisfaction. The Prometheus ships were performing exactly as designed. Their displacement drives allowed them to phase through normal space. Their weapons could destroy anything the Kolari had built. Retribution to all ships, she said calmly. Execute pattern. Delta, let's finish this. The human ships moved with deadly precision. They had practiced this battle 1,000 times in simulations. Every movement was calculated. Every shot was perfect. The Kolari fleet began to collapse. Ships tried to flee, but the human vessels were faster. They picked off the retreating ships one by one, their weapons reaching across impossible distances. My Lord, we've lost over half the fleet, Admiral Sektar reported, his voice shaking. Our weapons can't touch them. Our shields can't protect us. What are your orders? Zethkar stared at the tactical display in horror. His mighty fleet was being destroyed by 12 small ships. Everything he had built, everything he had conquered, was falling apart. Ram them, he ordered. All ships ram the human vessels. If we can't shoot them, we'll crush them. Dozens of Kolari ships changed course, accelerating toward the human fleet. It was a desperate move, but it was all they had left. The human ships didn't even slow down. As the Kalari vessels approached, the Prometheus ships simply phased out of normal space. The ramming ships passed through empty space and crashed into each other. Captain Foster opened a channel to the world render. Overlord, this is your final. Warning. Order your remaining ships to surrender, or we'll destroy them all. Zethkar's image appeared on the screen. The ancient alien looked older now, his confidence shattered. You're demons. No natural species could build weapons like this. We're not demons, Foster replied. We're humans. And we're very good at war. How? How did you develop such technology? Foster's expression was sad. Because we had to. Because species like yours made us. Every war we've fought, every weapon we've built, every ship we've designed, it was all to protect ourselves from beings who thought they could enslave us. The world render shuddered as human weapons struck its massive hull. Even the great ships. Armor couldn't withstand the quantum disruptors. Sections of the vessel began to disappear, leaving perfect spherical holes in the metal. You wanted to conquer humanity, Foster continued. You wanted to enslave our children. You wanted to turn our worlds into tribute factories. But you never asked the most important question. What question? Zethkar whispered. What if we said no? The world render's shields failed. It's massive. Hull began to crack as gravity bombs tore it apart from within. Around it, the last of the Kalari fleet died in fire and light. Zethkar stood in his command chamber as his ship came apart around him. Through the broken walls, he could see the human ships moving through the wreckage. They were beautiful in their deadliness, like silver angels of death. You've destroyed us, he said to the empty air. 3,000 ships. The pride of the Ma. Hegemony. Gone. Foster's voice came through the communication system one last time. We offered you peace. You chose war. Now you know the price. The world render exploded in a ball of fire that lit up the entire system. With it died the last hope of the Kalari hegemony. In 47 minutes, the most powerful fleet in galactic history had been reduced to floating wreckage. The 12 human ships regrouped in the center of the debris field. They had not lost a single vessel. Not a single crew member had been hurt. It had been a perfect victory. All ships, report status, Captain Foster commanded. Vengeance here. All systems. Green, no damage reported. Justice ready for next target. Weapons fully charged. One by one, the other ships reported in. The Prometheus fleet was ready to continue fighting. But there was no one left to fight. Across the galaxy, the news spread like wildfire. The Kalari hegemony was broken. Their fleet was destroyed. Their empire was falling apart, and 12 human ships hung in space, waiting to see who would be foolish enough to challenge them next. 6 months after the Battle of Zerion Prime, the galaxy was a different place. The Kalari hegemony had collapsed overnight. 3 centuries of rule had ended in 47 minutes of human fury. Now, the survivors faced a new reality. The meeting took place on Haven Station, a neutral trading post in the Outer Rim. It was the only place where former enemies could meet without fear. The station's owner, an elderly merchant named Jorik, had seen many changes in his long life. But nothing like this. The Kalari delegation arrived first. Only 3 ships, small and battered. Once, they had commanded thousands. Now they moved through space like beggars, asking permission to dock. Diplomatic caste leader Nix Ara led the group. She was young for a Kalari, barely a century old. The older leaders were all dead, killed by their own people when the news of the defeat reached the homeworld. She walked through the station's corridors with the careful steps of someone who knew they were defeated. Behind her came the remnants of the Kalari military. Generals who had once commanded star systems now followed like broken soldiers. Their proud uniforms were torn and dirty. Their weapons had been surrendered at the docking bay. The human delegation was already waiting in the main conference room. Admiral Patricia Cole sat at the head of the table, her gray hair neat and her uniform crisp. Beside her was Ambassador Ryan Clark, a calm man with kind eyes who had spent his life solving problems with words instead of weapons. When the Kalari entered, Nixara stopped just inside the door. Her 6 eyes took in the simple room, the basic furniture, the 2 humans who held the power to decide her species' fate. She had expected something grand, something that showed humanity's new dominance. Instead, she found ordinary people in an ordinary room. "Please, sit down," Ambassador Clark said gently. "Would you like anything to drink? Something to eat?" Nixara was confused. In Kalari culture, defeated enemies were treated as slaves. They knelt before their conquerors and begged for mercy. But these humans were offering her food. We have come to surrender," she said carefully. The Kalari hegemony formally submits to human authority. Admiral Cole leaned back in her chair. "We're not interested in ruling your empire. We just want to be left alone." The words hit Nixara like a physical blow. She had expected demands for tribute, for slaves, for territory. Instead, the humans wanted nothing. "But your power," she said weakly. "Your technology. You could rule the entire galaxy." "We could," Ambassador Clark agreed. "But we don't want to. Ruling other species isn't our goal. Never has been." Nixara looked at her military advisors. They were as confused as she was. General Cortex spoke up, his voice hoarse from shouting useless orders during the battle. "What do you want from us?" Then, Admiral Cole's expression became serious. "We want you to stop enslaving other species. We want you to end the tribute system. We want every world you've conquered to choose its own path. And if we refuse?" The Admiral's eyes became cold. "Then you'll discover that the Battle of Zirian Prime was us being gentle. The threat hung in the air like poison." Nixara remembered the reports from the battle. 12 human ships had destroyed over 3,000 Kalari vessels. If that was humanity being gentle, what would happen if they became truly angry? "We accept your terms," she said quickly. "All tribute payments will end. All enslaved species will be freed. The hegemony's military forces will be disbanded." "Good," Clark said. "But there's more. We've been talking to the species you conquered. They want compensation for 3 centuries of slavery." "What kind of compensation?" "Technology, medical, supplies, food shipments. Anything they need to rebuild what you destroyed." The ambassador slid a data pad across the table. "Here's the list." Nixara looked at the pad and felt her hope die. The demands were enormous. Her people would be working for decades just to pay back a fraction of what they owed. "This will bankrupt the remaining Kalari worlds," she protested. "Yes, it will," Admiral Cole said without sympathy. "You spent 300 years stealing from other species. Now it's time to give it back. And if we can't pay, then you'll work harder. Or you'll find yourselves dealing with Captain Foster and the Prometheus fleet again." The meeting continued for hours. Every detail of the Kalari surrender was discussed and agreed upon. The aliens would keep only enough ships for basic transportation. Their weapons would be destroyed. Their military bases would be converted into aid stations for the species they had oppressed. But the most important change was invisible. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy's smaller species were free. The Zentari, who had been reduced to slaves, were given back their homeworld. The peaceful Netherans could return to their art and music. The Vorthan traders could explore new worlds without paying tribute. News of the settlement spread quickly through space. On 1,000 worlds, beings who had lived their entire lives under Kalari rule celebrated their freedom. Children who had never seen their parents' home planets began planning return journeys. Captain Amy Foster stood on the bridge of the Retribution, watching the celebrations on the main screen. Her ship floated near Earth, hidden among the asteroids. Most people didn't even know the Prometheus fleet existed. That was how humanity wanted it. "Captain, we're receiving a message from Admiral Cole," reported Lieutenant Carl Stone. "Put her through." Cole's face appeared on the screen. She looked tired but satisfied. "Amy, I wanted to thank you and your crews personally. What you did at Xerion Prime saved billions of lives." "We were just doing our job, Admiral." "Your job was to destroy the Kaleri fleet." "You did much more than that. You changed the galaxy." Foster thought about that. It was true. The Battle of Xerion Prime had been about more than defeating an enemy. It had been about establishing a new way of thinking. Species didn't have to conquer each other to survive. They could choose cooperation instead of war. "What's next for the fleet?" Foster asked. "Patrol duty. Keep an eye on things. Make sure nobody gets any ideas about replacing the Kaleri as the galaxy's bullies." Foster nodded. "Understood. We'll be ready." A transmission ended, and Foster returned to watching the celebrations. On the screen, former slaves were dancing in the streets of their liberated worlds. Children were learning about freedom for the first time. Old enemies were shaking hands and planning peaceful futures. It was a good day to be human. 3 years later, Ambassador Clark stood in the same conference room where the Kaleri had surrendered. This time, he was meeting with representatives from dozens of species. They had come to Haven Station to form something new, a galactic council based on cooperation instead of conquest. The Zentari delegate, a proud warrior named Kolthek, spoke for many when he addressed the assembly. 3 years ago, we thought the galaxy would always be ruled by the strong. The Kaleri taught us that might makes right. But humanity showed us something different. "What's that?" asked the Methrin representative, her melodic voice carrying across the room. "That true strength comes from choosing when not to use your power. The humans could rule us all. Instead, they chose to free us. That's not just strength. That's wisdom." Clark smiled as he listened to the discussion. Humanity had never wanted to rule the galaxy. They had just wanted to explore it, to learn from other species, to find their place among the stars. Now they had achieved something better than conquest. They had achieved respect. Outside the station, space was peaceful. Trade ships moved between worlds that had once been enemies. Children from different species played together on orbital stations. Former Kaleri worlds worked hard to rebuild their reputation, many becoming centers of art and learning. The Prometheus fleet remained hidden, ready to respond if anyone threatened the new peace. But as the years passed, fewer and fewer species seemed interested in war. They had seen what happened to those who chose violence over cooperation. In his final report to Earth, Ambassador Clark wrote, "The galaxy has learned an important lesson. War has a price, and those who start wars are the ones who pay it. Humanity has become the guardian of peace, not through conquest, but through example. We showed the galaxy that there was a better way to live among the stars." The message was simple but powerful. In a universe full of different species, different cultures, and different ways of thinking, there was room for everyone. All it took was the wisdom to choose cooperation over conquest, understanding over fear, and peace over war. Humanity had paid the price for that wisdom with blood and sacrifice. Now the galaxy was learning to pay it forward with kindness and hope. The stars had never looked brighter.